Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's Podcast. This is episode 53, and my name is Wayne Bennett. And today's guest has coached basketball for over a half century, and I guess if we using that best adjective to describe him would be legendary, and that's Mr. Dave Barksdale. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
And first thing, I've heard you talk. I've seen you interviewed a few times. I haven't heard too much about your mom and dad. Tell me a little bit about your mom and dad.
Well, I miss them every day, to tell you the truth. I was the only child, and they had me a little later in life, and we were so close and all, so like I say, I miss them every day. But my mother and dad grew up down Lynchburg, Virginia, and they came to Beckley and got involved with Raleigh Hardware. People would remember Raleigh Hardware down in Mapscott, and got involved with that. And then the Moss family and my dad kind of had it for many, many years. And my dad, that was his passion, so to speak. He was there every morning at 8 o'clock, and come home and have lunch, and then he'd go back until 5. And that's just what he enjoyed for a good night. I don't know, can't remember exactly how many years, but it was a lot of years. But he really loved Raleigh Hardware. And
was he athletic at any time, or?
He loved baseball. He never talked about athletics much or anything. And I had an uncle, my mother's brother, lived right behind us, and he would take me fishing, and he would throw baseball with me. And but my dad was always involved in the baseball leagues. He was president of Beckley Little League and Beckley Babe Ruth and Warren Williams League over with the Dust Bowl, and he was really involved in that and really enjoyed it. So my mother didn't work, didn't drive, and she was a real housewife and loved her flowers and working them all day. And
where'd you live in Beckley?
We lived off of Harper Road on Fairview Avenue. That's where I grew up, and boy, a lot of fond memories there.
Now, you were born during World War II, and about the time you were in elementary school was when Van Meter started winning state championships in football and basketball. And
right, that's exactly
did you follow the Eagles?
Gosh, yeah. Now, my dad loved sports, as I said. Baseball was his real what he enjoyed the most as far as listening to it and all, but he would take me over to where Park is now. That was Woodrow, and they'd play on that stage, and I'd go. I guess he got me involved probably about, like you said, about the time they really were winning 4 straight, but sometime in the early 50s is when he started taking me to the games.
So baseball was the first organized sport that you played?
Baseball was the first organized sport, yes, sir. And they only had the one field at Little League, and didn't have a minor league. If you were good enough to make it at 8 years old, you did. If not, then you try again the next year or whatever. But that's my first was that. And then we had elementary basketball too.
Who was your elementary coach?
Mr. Wayne Petrie.
Oh, I remember him.
And he was tremendous. And then it was ironic that we went to Institute the first 5 years, and then they built Crescent. And our 6th grade year, we went to Crescent.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It would have been a tremendous team, I guess you'd say. As it turned out, Crescent and Institute met in the finals of the grade school tournament. And the year before, we were all together, and this time we played against each other, and they beat us 1 point. I
So that
never
was
will
the Grade
forget that.
Trotters against the Chipmunks.
Chipmunks, yes.
How
sir.
did that? Now, somebody told me you knew how they got the name Chipmunks.
Yeah. First year, in fact, two guys that went on to play high school ball, Bane Surratt and Dave Huffman, and we went to Crescent. And I remember the first day, we had a blacktop court out there, but there was no goals. And Mr. Law was our principal and coach. And we went in there and said, Mr. Law, where's the goals? He said, oh, they're coming. But all it was a court right behind the school, and there was woods. That's all they had. Now they got a baseball field down at the bottom and all that. But there was just not all that added school, just a one little school building and woods. One day, Mr. Law got on the loudspeaker and said, everybody get a piece of paper and a pencil out. We're going to name the mascot. And so what would happen when we were in class, chipmunks were in the woods, and they would run out on the basketball court and then run back into the woods. And I guarantee you, I would love to know who was the one that named it. But they were sitting there, and when he said, write down what you want, I guarantee you, they saw the chipmunks run out, and they said chipmunks, and that's how we got our name.
That's one of the steps.
That's right.
Now, did Bane Surratt go to Crescent with you?
Yes.
And where did Carbona? I know he was a year behind you.
Well, that was the other one. That was the ones that beat us. It was Roger Burns, Bill Carbonnet, and Jerry Sutphin were three that went on to play ball later. And so Billy went to Institute, and he was in that district, and then we were out on Harper Road, so we were in Crescent. And that's the ones, Billy and Roger and Jerry, they beat us by 1 point.
Well, now there were, I guess, 4 inner city schools that went to the 6th grade. It was Crescent, Institute, Lincoln, and Central at that time.
That was 4, yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's probably.
And then all the other schools around went to the 8th
grade.
That's I went to Sylvia, and
Oh,
we went to
yeah.
the 8th grade, and so we only got to go to Beckley Junior High 1 year.
Right.
And sometimes sports-wise, that was a handicap because we wasn't real familiar unless you were really, really blessed as an athlete. I remember going out for junior high football as a 9th grader, and I bet we had 100 kids out there, and some of the guys that had been out there for 2 years was already running plays and stuff about the second week, and we were kind of behind. But now a few of the guys like Chubby Hughes and Tom Coleman and some of those guys, they were good enough. They were going to play regardless. It didn't make any difference. But it was but most of the other schools went to the 8th grade. Who was your 7th grade coach?
Oh, 7th grade was. We gave our grade school coaches a lot of credit too.
Yeah.
And even when I started coaching at Woodrow, I made sure that I recognized them and told them how big a job they did as far as our basketball program. But our 7th grade coach was Mr. McNish.
Jim McNish.
Oh boy.
Great.
Was he something? Yes, he was. We give him, and then you would know the 8th grade coach was Mr. Ross Hutchins, and then our 9th grade coach was Coach Earl. So they were tremendous, just tremendous.
Now, they didn't have a YMCA back then, so if you didn't get it at school, you just played sandlot ball. And I remember Coach Earl would open up the rec building on Saturday mornings.
Oh, yes.
And boy, sometimes there'd be 150 guys down there. If you were a younger kid, if you got to touch the ball a couple of times in an hour, you're lucky.
Well, we were there at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And we loved it. And I'll tell you, the recreation director back then, people would remember, was Frank Rodriguez.
Oh yeah.
And he was the one that had along with Coach Earl, they had the rec building. Did you know the rec building was the rec court was the longest court in the country? We didn't know anything about it until later, but it was actually, instead of 94 feet, I think it was like 96 feet. And
now, Frank Rodriguez was the coach in East Beckley football when I played there, and then Bill Scruggs followed him. But Frank was in the National Guard at that time, come out. He was tough.
Oh, yes, sir.
And East Beckley didn't lose much either. When you got to the ninth, did you ever try to play football?
No, sir, didn't. Being an only child, my mother, we would go out on the fields around and play tackle and all, and I fit right in. I mean, but my mother absolutely said, "You are not playing football." And she was very protective, like the only child, I guess. And I said a little later in life, but no, I love football. And Bain and Huff and Billy, all of them played football, but couldn't play. That was all it was to it.
When you played Little League baseball, your dad was the president. Was he the coach?
No, he never did any kind of coaching. No, sir. Never got involved at all. And that's one thing about my dad. Parents today is kind of problems for coaches, I guess, is a lot of coaches would attest to. But my dad, I never heard him say one negative thing about any manager I had or coach I had all the years that I played. But he was just president of the league, and I was there every night. And same way with Babe Ruth, and same way as Warren Williams. So.
Who were some of your coaches in baseball?
The Reds, I played for the Reds in Little League, and it was Eber Bragg. And he was, I guess I made it as an 8-year-old, and he was for the Reds all the way through when I was 12.
Uh-huh.
And Hancock, Mr. Hancock, I played for Modern. And there's another, I can see his face right now, but I can't recall. But I think Mr. Hancock was one of my managers, but I did play for Modern, and I'm sorry I can't remember the other guy's name, or maybe even the head coach, I just can't remember. But then in Warren Williams' league, I think I played for Leeds, who had a place on Prince Street up there.
Yeah, Leeds Discount.
Right, and I can't remember whether that was that or the league. It's kind of league right after you finish Warren Williams' league. But oh boy!
Yeah, they used to have. Was it called Harry Lewin Field when you was over at Babe Ruth?
No, we all at Babe Ruth, yes, sir. In fact, I played on Harry Lewin Field. It opened my second. Let's see, the year before I came over as a 13 or whatever. It opened up. Some of the ones that played for Woodrow, Ralph Thompson, Danny Ellison, I think they pretty well were there the first year.
Yeah.
And it was Harry Lewin Field, yes, sir.
Now, when you played in the ninth grade basketball, did you start on the ninth grade basketball team?
Yes, sir.
And
we were undefeated. In fact, that was quite a time for all of us. Seventh grade, we played against all the schools you're talking about that had an eighth grade. We were seventh graders.
I remember that.
And I think, I'm sure people hear this say I'm wrong. They'll say, it's not true, Barksdale. I think we were the first seventh grade team to win the county championship, playing against the Teals and the Sylvias and the Cranberries and all that. But we did win that. And then our ninth grade year, we went undefeated. And then after that, Billy and Bain, he was a star on the varsity where Barksdale was on the JV and all that. And then when Billy came over, he started as a sophomore on the varsity. So we kind of broke up until our last year in Billy's junior year. That's when we went undefeated too. So.
Now, did Woodrow have a baseball program when you came up?
The first year they started back was my junior year, 61. They had one And I'm not sure what year they stopped it. And sometime in the 50s, they had one, they stopped it. And so it was my junior year, they started it back. And we had a well, the Little League in Babe Ruth was so strong, but that first year that we had it, we went all the way to the state finals and got beat by Huntington in the state finals.
Now, was that Bob Dyke play with you guys?
Bob Dyke was a catcher, yes, sir.
Pike Hinsley?
Pike Hinsley was with me now. Pike graduated with me.
In 62.
In 62, but some of the ones that were Duck Belcher.
Ducky Belcher.
Oh, tremendous pitcher. Rodney Weichel, tremendous pitcher. Danny Ellison. You talk about a glove. He played shortstop. Charlie Thompson, Ralph Thompson. Yeah, that was a real good baseball team.
Somewhere along the line, you played a little tennis too, didn't you? When'd you pick up tennis?
Well, it was like on Little League, is the swing, a bad left-handed. And one thing about my tennis, my backhand, which is harder for most people, was probably my best stroke because that's the way I batted in baseball. So I remember my uncle taking me out when I was 11 years old. He lived in Virginia and his daughters played, and he said, I want to take you out and we're going to hit with it, let you hit. And I picked that backhand up and he was amazed, but it was just the same. So on Little League and Babe Ruth game days, Black Knight down there had a board on the tennis courts, and I would go down there and hit the tennis ball against that board because it was the same kind of swing like as in baseball. But baseball was what I loved and played, but I would always enter tournaments, and darn guy named Grady Barber, he beat me every time in all these tournaments and all, but he was really good. But that's how I kind of started, about 11 years old, and played. But I'll just tell you this about the teaching part. I was working at New River Park. I guess the first summer I came in from college, and I was cutting grass up here on them big gravelly moors. They had the thing that dragged me all over the place. But anyway, they started the tennis program that day, and Grady Barber was teaching. And as it turned out, not too much later, maybe 2 weeks or something, I believe, is Grady had to give it up. And Frank knew I played a little tennis. He called me and said, Barksdale, you think you can do anything with that tennis program? I said, well, I'd like to try. And so that's how I got started. And the first summer we were down at Ewart Avenue, and they were clay courts, dirt clay courts. And my dad would take me down every morning. Now, Grady was teaching, so people won't say, well, you just said Grady was at New River. That's true. Now, why Frank moved it from New River to Ewart when I took over, but it's true. I did see Grady start at New River, and then when I took it, he said, we're going to do it at Ewart. But anyway, I'd go down there at 7:30 every morning, and I would roll, had 4 courts back then. I'd roll 4 courts, then I'd get the hose out, and I'd water them down just to get all the dust. And then like a baseball field, you had a limer. And I would lime all 4 courts off. And about 10 minutes till 9, I'd stand back and I'd say, boy, do these things look good. And then we'd have lessons all day. And about 4 o'clock, a lot of the lines were off. And I'd have to do the same thing again the next morning. But I started teaching when I was in college and then got married. And maybe people would kind of think this is interesting. We got married in December, my wife and I. I was smart enough to get her before basketball really started. We got married. I said, I'm not sure she's going to like this life that much, so I kind of got her before we really get started. But anyway, came in and I went to see Frank. I said, Frank, my wife needs a job, thinking maybe the exhibition mine or something. And he said, well, your program is getting really big, and it was growing. And he said, can your wife? And I kind of crossed my fingers and told a little story. I said, well, Frank, she's not great, but she could sure teach those little kids. Truth of the matter was, she'd never picked up a racket in her life. Never. And we had 1 week from my teaching and coaching in South Carolina when we came back to stay with my parents. Had 1 week to teach her how to play. And you talk about patient-wise, I guess I wasn't real good. And I remember one time I got on her and she took that racket and she threw that racket down on the ground and said, you are not going to talk to me like that. But as it turned out, she was tremendous that first summer with the little kids, and she started playing. And by the time, a couple years later she started playing in tournaments in South Carolina. That's how much she loved it and all. And we talked until she was pregnant with our second child. And I started, Grady started it. And then by the time we left, which was about 5 years later, I think, we had 350 people taking lessons.
Wow.
We were there all day. We would stay until people got off work. They would come and take. We had 350, and it was a tremendous program. Frank paid my wife and I and Danny Ellison that last year, who was great baseball and good tennis. He helped us. And they provided rackets for anybody that didn't have it, all the balls. And we would have like maybe 8 to 10-year-old girls from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 8 to 10 boys. Then we would 11 to 12. We'd have 10 to 12 and all that. So it was really a great program, and we enjoyed it.
Barber, he might be the only guy that's won a state championship in tennis from Woodrow, ain't he?
He might very well be.
Male, I think. I think there was a female dual, maybe the Lucchini girl, and somebody might have won it. But I know he won. He would have been in class 64, maybe?
Probably a little younger than me, yeah. But he was a really good tennis player. I tell you, another one might have played, I'm not sure, it was Pete Colasurto's daughter, Barbara, and Gina both were good tennis players.
Yeah, I was thinking it might have been the Lucchini and Colasurto.
I was thinking Barbara and Lucchini. Lucchini's were good.
But now, in basketball, you got to your senior year, and your starting lineup was Ron Cimbala, Bain Surratt, you, Billy Carbona, and Pike Hines.
Right.
And if it had a three-point shot back then, Bain Surratt, they probably still wouldn't be trying to catch his record.
That's right. And I tell you another one that was really, we had a great bench too, but Roger Burns was just like a starter. Yeah, he was just like a starter. And
now, did y'all start out playing in the rec building? When was the Armory done? I know it was
February 3rd or 2nd, the first game ever in the Armory. And we had played at the rec building all the way through. In our senior year, we played in our rec building until I think it was February 2nd or 3rd. And that's when they opened the Armory. And we were ranked first. South Charleston was ranked third. And that was the first game ever in that Armory. Although people would remember Jack Beard and Johnny Beard. Jack Beard, I tell the story that we played the first game ever in that Armory. And every time he'd be around, hear me say that, he said, "Nope, you're wrong, Barksdale. My son played the first game in that Armory because the Institute played somebody a prelim game." So he would always let me know. Y'all wasn't the first ones, but we did play and open, I think it's 2nd or 3rd of February.
Well, I remember I buy season tickets to those when you guys the first whole year, I guess, when Woodrow started. But and I'd go watch the JV game at 6 o'clock and the varsity game, and back in those days, all the way up into the 70s, Richwood and some of them teams were AAA schools and very competitive, like the Milroy brothers later on, and Spicer boys down at
Golly Bridge.
Golly Bridge. There was some athletes there. But now, so you guys are undefeated. You get to the state tournament. Well, you beat Oak Hill in the sections. You had East Bank in the region?
Princeton was the real test. Let me tell you a funny story. Talk about Bain. Bain worked at the game. You talk about practicing, my goodness. But anyway, we played Oak Hill regular season, and they put everybody, about all five, just around Bain. And the coach said afterwards, we did what we've cut out to do. We stopped Surratt. And we scored like 100 and some points that night.
Really? But they stopped Surratt.
But Bain was so upset that he didn't think he did anything that he walked home that night. But that just shows you. But anyway, we beat Oak Hill, I guess, in the sectional. But the first test was supposed to be Princeton. Mm-hmm. They had a kid named Barry St. Clair that went on to play at Davison. And they had a good ball club, but we had a good game. But the one that almost knocked us out of our dream was East Bank.
Yeah.
East Bank was the regional finals, and
it was like 83-80 or something.
Yeah, and get this, I never got headlines. I knew I was smart enough to know if I was going to play, I better throw the Bain, get the ball to Surratt. But anyway, so I led the team in assists, but I didn't score that much. But Sunday morning's paper after we beat East Bank 83-80, the headlines in big black type up there was Surratt and Barksdale lead the Eagles. And I scored 2 points the whole night, but it was 81-80, and I got fouled, and I made 2 free throws, and there was no 3-point shot or nothing. But I got headlines, and Surratt scored like 40, and I scored like 2. And anyway, that was my fame of getting my name in big print. So.
One of your closest games that year was, it wouldn't have counted, was the alumni game. I think you guys only beat them by 1 point.
Yeah, but you realize who they had. That was maybe the best victory we ever had was Jitterbug Gilbert, who was on that 57 tremendous team. Went on to play at Virginia Tech. I'd say Buddy Bales played at Florida. I don't know whether Howard Hurt played or not. I couldn't say. I wish I could say Hurt played because he was, captain at Duke for 2 years. But the team we beat, all 5 of them were pretty big-time basketball players in college at that time. Now, I guess everything was different. Like, instead of them having to stay there or maybe have a day for Christmas, I guess it was different. Because we all said, my gosh, what a win that was.
Did you ever see Dwayne Wingler play?
Yes, sir. Yeah. In fact, Dwayne Wingler, it was just unbelievable as far as us little kids. I went to Institute, and Dwayne Wingler would walk from the First Baptist Church uptown down the hill. And as soon as he would come across the road to start up by Institute, they had a fence, just like it is now, fence all the way down. We would gather at the fence and walk with him. He would walk on the outside and we'd walk on the inside, all the way up to the back of the building. And then it stopped for us. We would run around the building to the other side and stand by the fence until Dwayne Wingler walked into Woodrow.
Wow.
Oh, I mean, that was a ritual of ours. Holy cow. He was something, yes, sir.
And I never actually got to watch him play, but I've heard so much about him, what a tremendous athlete he was. But let's go back to the states a bit. Then you're into state finals, and I remember as a kid I was listening on the radio, and you guys are playing Weirton. Had you heard of Ron Fritz Williams?
No, there was a guy named Thompson, was supposedly, and I tried to guard the best player. Coach always usually had me guard one of the smaller players that was pretty good. I remember a Bowman down at Bluefield who went on to play college ball really good. I mean, I wasn't doing any good on him, and I remember Coach called timeout and said, Barksdale, you guard so-and-so and Carbonnet, you get on him. Boy, I was so mad, but it was probably the best thing that ever happened because he was so good, and Billy probably did a great job. But anyway, the main one we thought was a Thompson. And but I think Fritz only got 28 that night, Williams, you know. But, yeah, I don't remember, maybe because I had to guard Thompson, that maybe Fritz Williams was better than we had heard. I don't remember. But
yeah, they didn't have social media or anything like
right.
that back that time, and I just kind of wondered if you guys had heard of it.
Yeah, we were both undefeated, you know. That's the way you kept up with it in the rankings. About all we knew of Weirton was that, you know.
Now, you had number 33 in high school, I think. Did you get to pick your number, or they just give you that jersey?
Don't remember. Don't remember. I just remember.
I remember reading one time that you had in an interview. You said that Coach Wiseman always got you guys together at the end of practice for some kind of philosophy meeting, or and that he made a statement that he would like to see one of his players to come back and coach at Beckley. And immediately that kind of set a spark for you that you thought that would really be neat.
I did. That's absolutely true and all. But about the time you think of that, then you think, no, I'm going to be another Jerry West. So then you still think when you're in high school you're going to be another pro baseball or basketball player. But yeah, he did. And I can see him right now standing out there saying that I hope one of these days one of my former players will take over for me.
Now, when you were in high school, your best friends was Bill Wooten and Pat Forgill. Those guys have done pretty good themselves professionally, and so you had a pretty good high school career and won a state championship for only undefeated team in the history of Woodrow Wilson basketball. And Coach, you're not going to believe this, but our time's about up, and it flies, doesn't it?
Well,
but we're going to.
I reminisce maybe too much on stuff, but I appreciate you having me.
We're going to get. Will you come back and talk to us?
Well, I would enjoy it for sure. So.
Okay, well, we'll do that. And anybody else that wants to be on the show, you can contact me at awbennett@gmail.com. And till next time, remember, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet.